honor of me watching Toy Story 5, review will be up later, I thought, what not better way to do that in preparation for the movie and go back and review the first 4 movies, because there's a lot to talk about in those films. I will have timestamps in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for more videos like this, because I have more to come. And let's get into the review of Toy Story from 1995. So starting off with this movie, I think Toy Story, it's very, very nostalgic because we get to grow up with Andy throughout this entire franchise, except for because he's in college for the end of the 3rd movie. But with this first movie, I think there's something very special that hit home and hit harder, way different than the movies from Toy Story 2 to Toy Story 5 now. With Woody and Buzz, Woody mainly, he has a very, very exciting storyline. And I think it's great that he's kind of pretty much the sheriff, and he kind of passes on being a sheriff by the end of the 4th movie, but I will get to that later in this video.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
So Woody, he's kind of like, I wouldn't say a control freak, but like he is the sheriff of Andy's bedroom in the 1st movie. So he is getting everybody ready for Andy's party, because Andy, he has a birthday party in the 1st movie that happens before he moves out of his house. Because the 1st movie, we follow Woody and he moves out of the house with the other toys because Andy and his mom, they moved to a new house by the end of the 1st one, I believe. So starting off, I think Buzz in this movie was a really great introduction, because with Woody and Buzz in this movie, they have a relationship where it's like a friend-to-friend, brother-to-brother type bond, and it's really funny with their first interaction where Buzz, he thinks like Woody's like kind of an unvisited like alien creature that he does not know of until like he kind of meets the characters. And Woody, he kind of like gets offended by Buzz because he's like kind of taking control of the room now that Andy got him as a new birthday present. And Buzz, he has a very, very strange like feeling at the beginning of the start when he meets Woody and the rest of the toys in the room, where he's like, I'm still in space. You kind of dropped my spaceship in a strange planet.
Are you sure?
But later to find out, Buzz realizes it's actually a kid's bedroom and that he is a toy. He's not a space ranger, but he believes that for the most of the 1st movie. Now, with Buzz, I believe he has that certain feeling where he's like, I'm kind of here to do a job and I need you to move out my way. And that's the rivalry that Buzz and Woody kind of carry on to the 5th movie, and I do talk about that rivalry a little bit in my Toy Story 5 review, so make sure to see that. So I think especially another thing I want to bring out too is Sid in this movie. Sid, I'm not talking about Sid the Science Kid.
Hey, is this thing on?
Hey, Sid, what do you say? What you want to learn today?
I'm talking about Sid. He has a very, very dark and deranged personality in this movie, but great villain for this movie because it sets up a really good story of like toys know how to operate themselves and they're not supposed to be like messed around with. And I think Sid learns his lesson by the end of this movie where he's like, I've been messing with toys, but I won't do it anymore because I know Woody is a deranged like but kind of friendly type toy. So with Sid, like, you know, we follow him. He's that type of kid where he's like, I'm gonna blow things up and destroy anything I can because that's what I do. I'm an evil kid. And I think he gets a very great lesson learned by Woody and Buzz, of course. But yeah, I think Sid, aside from all people, is probably the worst character in the Toy Story franchise. But I'll get on to the second worst character in the Toy Story franchise in my Toy Story 2 review in the next few minutes here. So now, of course, then with Woody and Buzz, like throughout the whole movie, they're kind of fighting, and they're like, who likes Andy better type situation. And they really do have a feeling where they're like, we are here to make a child happy. At least that's like what Woody thinks, and that's definitely Buzz's personality by Toy Story 5. But with this film, you really see Woody and Buzz like grow a greater connection by the end of the first movie, and it really does carry on all the way to the fifth movie. Because like I said, their bond in Toy Story, the first movie, it really feels like a brother to brother, I'm your buddy, I'm always going to stick with you type bond. Now, near the end of this movie, you know, Andy, he's kind of like, he really loves his toys. So for most of this movie, he's like, where are my toys, Woody and Buzz? And he mentions Woody and Buzz because they're both his favorite. He kind of picks Woody and Buzz as they're both equally loved to me. And I think that's really great for Andy. Now, there's really no post-credit scene for this movie, but I will say for the end of the first Toy Story movie, I think it's great that Andy, he gets a new dog. He gets Mrs. Potato Head, who of course marries Mr. Potato Head, but like, you know, it's kind of in secret because we could tell they're married by the second movie. It's kind of just there easily. And it's just, the first movie is really great. It's really, really nostalgic and amazing to see their friendship. With that being said, let's move on and talk about Toy Story 2. Now with Toy Story 2, we kind of open it with Andy again. He's playing with his toys. And this time around, Woody, he's going to cowboy camp. So he wants to bring Woody along, but he has a few minutes before he goes to cowboy camp. So he pulls out his toys and he plays with Woody and Buzz and everybody else, ready to do another fantastic, imaginative adventure. But that moment gets ruined when Woody and Buzz, they're kind of hanging and Woody's arm kind of gets ripped in a way. And then Andy's kind of just like, well, you kind of ripped your arm, so I don't want to bring you because I might be embarrassed a little bit. And in a way that does break Woody's heart a bit. So then Andy's mom, she puts Woody up on the shelf and they drive Andy off to cowboy camp. And from there, Woody kind of freaks out. He's like, where's my arm? And all that. And it's crazy to me that you still feel the nostalgia of number one in the second film. And from there, you know, we now learn Woody is also, he was a part of like Roundup group, and this is where we get introduced to Jessie and Bullseye along with Prospector Pete, and I will get to Prospector Pete's story later in the Toy Story 2 review. So with this, Woody kind of gets separated from the group and he ends up being stolen by Al, who takes Woody back because he's like a giant toy collector, so he's glad he's found Woody, but of course he like steals him because Andy's mom tells him he's not for sale. But he picks the lock from the cash bag that Andy's mom locked Woody in, and he kind of picks it, takes Woody, and then brings him back to his apartment where he sets him up inside of a like case, like special glass case, and that's when he leaves the room and finally interacts with Jessie, Bullseye, and Prospector Pete. Now, with these characters and their interactions, I think it was really cool to see Jessie like kind of give a backstory on who she is and and why she's so afraid of like being in storage, because she was left behind by her owner, Emily. Now, with Woody and Jesse, they share a connection with each other because one, they're both cowboys and a cowgirl, and they share the connection of having an owner, but the difference between the two is Woody has an owner, Jesse does not. That is until she is brought home in Toy Story 2 and is a new addition to the Andy family, because Andy writes Jesse's name on the bottom of her foot, so she has now become part of Andy's family. Prospector Pete. So he is basically the main villain of this movie.
We do not care.
And I get to Zurg in a second into what he does and like who he is to Buzz, really, because it's hilarious how they have a reference to Star Wars in the second movie. So Prospector Pete, he's kind of mad that Woody wants to leave and go back to Andy, and Jesse is at first, but then kind of understands where he's coming from. Prospector Pete, however, he wants to be like in the tour. He wants to be part of that I'm kind of famous type guy, and that's kind of why Toy Story 2 is like my least favorite Toy Story, because Prospector Pete is kind of annoying. He's kind of a jerk, and that's why I don't like the character that much. But as far as Zurg goes, the reason why I said Star Wars reference is because they make a funny joke nodding to the scene when Luke Skywalker finds out that Darth Vader is his father, but they make that funny reference where Zurg tells Buzz that he is his father, and then he does that iconic no, and that's why it's so funny, and I think that was great with Zurg. But for the ending of Toy Story 2, you know, Jessie finds her home, her place as a toy, and with that being said, it was a beautiful ending to that second movie, of course leading on to Toy Story 3, where I will now talk about Toy Story 3. So, in Toy Story 3, we open with that iconic, imaginative animation where Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head decide to attack a bus full of children on there who are portrayed as plastic trolls, and it's kind of funny because then Woody, Buzz, and Jesse and Bullseye, they all go help to save this runaway train that's about to fall off the cliff, because Mr. Potato Head puts a bomb there, and so that's kind of funny. And so then we see Rex. We get that iconic scene where Mr. Potato Head, he's like, I got my force field dog, and then Woody says, I have my attack dinosaur who eats force field dogs. And that was really a great callback to the first movie, like with the opening image of the first movie, because that scene exactly happens. It's just the only difference is Mr. Potato Head, he has an eye patch, and then Ham, he also plays like an imaginary villain named Mr. Evil Dr. Porkchop, and I thought that was funny because they're basically making a joke of him like being whatever is in the Bacon family. But with that, I thought that was super hilarious. So now, along with the rest of this Toy Story 3 movie, you know, we follow the group because Andy in this third movie, he's now going to college, so he doesn't have any time for playing with toys anymore, and his toys accidentally get donated to Sunnyside, and there they meet Lotso, Ken, Barbie. Actually no, Barbie is with the group, but Woody and the others, they meet Lotso, the big baby, Ken, and I think it was also awesome to find out that Michael Keaton voices Ken in this movie, and I thought that was awesome because I felt the funny portrayal from Michael Keaton that made it more nostalgic. So anyways, the group get to Sunnyside and they meet Lotso. Lotso tells the group about how at Sunnyside they'll be played with and cared for, and that they'll never be abandoned there. But, you know, later, sadly, we find out that Lotso, he is the villain of Toy Story 3. So Lotso, he really doesn't actually care for the toys, and he wants them to be left behind and donated. And I think that's great when the group get together and form a plan to stop Lotso and save the toys from Sunnyside so they can all escape happily. Now, with that being said, I think Lotso and his ending, it was great ending for him because, you know, he never actually comes back. But I think the way they ended Lotso's story there, it was really funny because Lotso gets like tied to the front of a garbage truck and then he meets other toys that are also there, and it's just funny that we get that moment. And also with Lotso, you know, you can always change, but Lotso, his story in this movie is that he also had a kid, but his kid abandoned him, and that's where he ended up in Sunnyside, and that's why he's evil throughout this movie. So yeah, I think Toy Story 3, the way it ended nicely. It ended with full of joy and happiness, and we saw the toys get to end up with a new kid named Bonnie. Now, Andy's mom, near the beginning of this movie, Andy's mom already had met Bonnie, but Andy himself goes to Bonnie's house and gives Bonnie the toys, but she hands down Woody last because Woody's always been Andy's favorite toy. He's always played with Woody. That's always been his nostalgic cowboy, and we get that special moment from Andy and kind of shown to the fans as well of the Toy Story franchise. And I think that was just a really powerful and special moment. So with that, we end that movie on a note where the toys, they are with a new family, a new kid, and they happily watch Andy go off to college. And yeah, I just thought Toy Story 3 ended very, very good, and it felt really nostalgic for me because since I'm going to be graduating high school this year, I thought that was a beautiful ending for that movie. But of course, it doesn't end there because then we move on to Toy Story 4. So now, in Toy Story 4, we kind of get a tiny flashback of young Andy, you know, the way he looks in the first two movies. And we follow him. He's playing with his toys, but Woody and the others, they have to rescue RC because he gets stuck outside in the rain, and he's kind of being pushed away, like inside the water gutter.
Stop the cap.
And so Woody and the others, they form a plan to go save him, and from there they do, but Woody has to say goodbye to Bo Peep because Andy's younger sister Molly, she doesn't want Bo Peep anymore. She's kind of grown up and a teenager now. That's what happens when kids grow up. They kind of forget things, and you know, that's just the thing about this movie. Is the thing with these Toy Story movies is it shows you can still be a kid, but sometimes you gotta grow up as well. And that's, I think, another thing why I love Toy Story 5, and you could hear me rant about that in my Toy Story 5 review. But okay, so with Toy Story 4, I think it's beautiful because this is when Bonnie, I think she was in first or second grade in this movie, and this is her first day. It's like the orientation day for her. She's kind of feels like scared and alone. So that's when Woody kind of decides on his own, I'm gonna go to Bonnie's school and help her make friends. Of course, it doesn't feel like it doesn't go that well for Bonnie in the beginning because she's kind of alone, still feels afraid, but her teacher's friendly, of course. And Woody just finds random supplies in the trash can, throws them on Bonnie's table, and that's when Bonnie creates her new toy, Forky. And from there, that's when Bonnie is done with class, and Bonnie's surprise for being a brave kid is she goes on a road trip with her parents. And from there, Forky is introduced to Woody and the rest of the toys, where for most of the movie he believes he's trash because it's true, he came from a trash bin, but Woody tells him that Bonnie is your new owner and you're a toy to her, so you need to like keep it that way. So then on the road trip, Woody, all these years later, he finds Bo Peep, but on top of that, before he meets Bo Peep, he has to keep an eye on Forky. And then Forky himself, he knows he's trash. He was born from trash. And so he flies out the window. Woody has to go after Forky while Buzz like kind of takes the lead of the group while Woody is gone. So Woody goes after Forky, and then Woody follows Forky, but the van is already gone. So Forky and Woody, they end up going to a small antique store, and this is where Woody is introduced and meets Gabby Gabby, the doll, who in this movie, Gabby Gabby's story feels a lot like Jessie's, where she was kind of left in an antique store and abandoned by a young girl. And same thing with Jessie. She was kind of abandoned by a young girl, but of course Jessie found a new home with Andy and then with Bonnie. And that was just, it was a beautiful thing with that bond and relationship. When Woody and Forky arrive upon the antique store, they meet Gabby Gabby. And yeah, I will say for the most part, Gabby Gabby and her dummies were kind of creepy for the first few minutes of this movie when Woody and Forky met her. But from there, it was nice because Woody and Gabby Gabby have a moment where Gabby Gabby tells Woody that, you know, I think you know what it's like to be loved by a kid and played with, and that's when Woody's like, well, yeah, I know that feeling. I've been with the same kid for a few years and then passed down to another kid. And, you know, I think that moment was also really beautiful because it shows you that Woody isn't just a sheriff, but he likes to help people when they're in a certain situation that's either danger or just like trying to help this toy get to a new owner. And then that's when Buzz, you know, he's like, Woody earlier in the movie tells Buzz about having an inner voice. So for Woody, it's his voice box with his pull string, and for Buzz, it's the buttons on his chest where he just keeps pushing them until he finds an answer. And that's when Buzz just decides to jump out the window like Woody. And then he ends up in the carnival, and that's when he meets Ducky and Bunny, who are played by Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele. And I think great moment that we got to see them, because I always love Key and Peele stuff, and it was really great to see that we got some famous actors playing some cool characters. And speaking of famous actors, I thought Keanu Reeves' Duke Kaboom in this movie was also hilarious because he had moments to shine, and he has his own backstory as well, where he was gifted to Rajan as a present because Rajan saw Duke Kaboom as like a cool action star. And it feels funny that you get that kind of callback from Toy Story 1 where Buzz thought he was a space ranger and he thought he was from space, but he saw the ad where he doesn't really fly until we get that cool moment at the end of Toy Story 1 where he does fly. But for Duke Kaboom, you know, Rajan saw him as like a cool flying bicycle guy, but it turns out that didn't happen. Rajan got mad and kind of just threw him away, and from there Duke Kaboom was just left alone, abandoned, just like Jessie and just like Gabby Gabby. So from there, then Duke Kaboom, Woody, Bo Peep, everybody else, they save Forky from Gabby Gabby, who again for most of this movie is the villain. There's not like a really centered villain like the first, second, or third movie, but like for sure Gabby Gabby is mainly the main villain for Toy Story 4. Gabby Gabby gets a happy ending where she helps a lost child feel safe at the carnival. It's a beautiful ending for Gabby Gabby, beautiful ending for the toys, where Woody and the others, they interact with each other one last time before Woody makes himself become a lost toy and hands his badge over to Jessie, where we see her be the main character of Toy Story 5, which I do talk about that in my Toy Story 5 review, so make sure to check that out. And from there, it was just a beautiful ending for the toys, because the last moment we get to see between Woody and Buzz is they both say the iconic line, "To infinity and beyond," but it's kind of split because they both say it after one another. So Buzz is like, "To infinity," and Woody says, "and beyond." And I thought that was just a really great classic line moment with a callback to the first movie. And I think with this franchise itself, there's a lot of great callbacks to the first movie or other films in general that make it into these future sequels and all that. But with that being said, that would do it for this Toy Story franchise review. And yeah, I think that's really amazing. So, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for sticking with me on this YouTube journey, because it really means a lot. But thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to leave your comments down below what you thought of the Toy Story franchise, what you think of Toy Story 5, and my review for that will be up after this, so make sure to look out for that. And as always, I will catch you guys on the flip side.